one. I did the one that we needed, that we signed up for, but I didn't see. There's only four. There's the Streamlabs, the auto care, the makeup one, and then the GEVI or whatever it's called.
I forget which one it is.
I believe we're live.
I believe so.
Oh my
What's up?
goodness.
We're on the
Yeah.
what do you want to call it?
The final. This is episode 12. This is the beginning of the end.
That's right. This is uh the everything coming to fruition.
Yep. It
Oh,
is very scary, and I'm excited to see it.
same here, same here. It was scary going through it. Like it was legit something else. And welcome everybody who's out there watching, and for our uh, loyal subscribers and people that watch the video after it's already put up on YouTube. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Unnaturals Gaming channel and Unnaturals YouTube channel. I am one of your fine hosts, the worst one, here with the other half.
The better one, of course, or the best one, whichever. You know, I'm fine with shortening my name.
It's whichever one you want to go with. I am true and pure, the
Mm-hmm.
worst.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we would like to thank all of you guys for supporting us, showing us that, we can actually make something of this. We've climbed so much in such a short amount of time that it's truly unbelievable. And from the bottom of our hearts, we can't thank you guys enough.
Mm-hmm.
And, just share the video with your friends, family, show people, maybe we might be their cup of tea, maybe we won't, but you'll never know until you check it out, until you try. And we'd really appreciate it. Just like we're big
Comment.
boys now, we got sponsors.
Yes, we do. Are you?
Yes.
Well, let's start with
We
a
got,
goodie. Oh, let's start with an oldie but a goodie.
oh, yes. Streamlabs Ultra. It's what we use for our platforms, both me and the best one. And we use it to literally customize and make each one of our VODs our own unique stamp on stuff, how we want them, how we got them set up. It is truly, we cannot recommend it enough. For all you future content creators out there, we recommend it highly. And if you use our link in the description below our video on all our videos for Streamlabs Ultra, you'll be not only helping yourself out for future content endeavors, you'll be helping out the channel greatly, and we truly appreciate that. And if you do wind up using our affiliate link to subscribe and get the Streamlabs Ultra subscription, please send us your first video or send us a video that you have made yourself of your content or whatever. We're so interested in to see everyone's creative take on using this wonderful, wonderful platform. And yeah, I'm super excited to just see all the different kinds of creative people and what they come up with and how the look is and the feel. And I'm really looking forward to it. How about you?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how fast they pick up on the technology aspect of it, much quicker than you did.
That's most people. Even monkeys could do it.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about what other people can do compared to you, but we do also have another subscriber, or sorry, another affiliate, if you would like to talk about them as well.
Uh,
Hmm.
I would love to.
It's
Let me just
fine. I got it
pull
pulled
up
up.
my. You got it pulled up?
Don't worry. As you guys know here, we love Streamlabs Ultra and we would appreciate you guys using our Streamlabs Ultra link, but also we have an additional link on our description, as well as I believe also on our YouTube channel that you may check out. GEVI. GEVI is a all-encompassing kitchen appliance store. They make everything from coffee makers to ice makers to even
Vacuum cleaners.
vacuum cleaners. They have a Black Friday deal coming up, and if you use our affiliate link when you purchase anything from them, you would be helping support our channel, as well as maybe also possibly getting a pretty decent Christmas gift. Because Black Friday is right around the corner, Tech Tuesday is also coming, and I know most stores and most companies that go online actually start their Black Friday deals November the 11th. So save up and start putting in there, and if you buy something and if it's good and if it works, that's great. They do have a return policy, and if anything doesn't work out, then feel free to return it. But as always, thank you for supporting our channel. If you even give this a shot.
Yes,
But
thank you. Thank you to Gevi and Streamlabs Ultra for supporting our videos, and thank you guys for supporting us. And all these links will be in our description below. And I'm
mhm,
just stalling because I'm scared that I have to relive this a second
yes.
time.
So where we left off with our group of heroes, a storm more powerful than the land of storms itself came bustling through Neverwinter. Our party had just sent out notice, flyers, basically all the sendings they could possibly send, messages to powerful allies that they could possibly make. They sent fake creatures, they sent the Infernals, they sent the Celestials, they sent everyone on notice. They said, "We need help. This is why. Please come help us. If not, we will all die." That's it. Your the ball's in your court essentially. Um, so after this happened, a massive storm started appearing above Neverwinter, something similar to that of a void storm. Very powerful purple, black, and gray clouds that seemed to almost ominously shift and turn above Neverwinter, making their presence very much known. They sprawled for miles across the sky, and then it began to rain. There wasn't wind, there wasn't tornado, there wasn't crazy bolts of lightning causing devastation and destruction, but it rained. This magenta amethyst color rain began to splash down on the ground. They saw it's as people were standing just getting hit with this rain, nothing immediately happened. And then one by one, they began seeing people slowly being torn away, as if their body was melting and being ripped from the plane that they were on. Immediately, the party sprung into action and began to force the populace back into homes and buildings for protection, as it seemed the buildings themselves, for the most part, were not instantly absorbed. It was only organic or living creatures that were absorbed. As the party ran into a broken down tavern after saving as many people as they could, making a couple saving throws themselves to not be ripped from the current plane that they are on. The party found the tavern. They slammed the door shut, and they waited out the rain. As it rained for 3 days and 3 nights, the party rested, and scarily enough, they regained no spell slots and no hit points back
Yes.
during those 3 days. The party, shocked by this revelation, looked toward
And
each other,
horrified.
and said, I don't know what we're going to do here, because we don't have access to everything. We're still hurting from our time in the hells. So the party had an idea. What if we leave, go to a different plane, rest up, and come back? Only issue with that is they're not sure which plane they should go to, if they even should go to one, because of the time dilation. They could be in one plane for a day and weeks passed in the material plane. So they weren't quite sure which one to do. Now, the party decided against that. Instead, what they did is they made it to the ship, and they decided to close the door on the ship because the ship was completely sealed and had a force field around it, and they slept on their ship, and they ended up getting their health and their spell slots back, as the rain was not able to penetrate through the ship's shield, luckily. They did, however, after the rain had passed and stopped, they did, however, find puddles of this rainwater that seemed to just coalesce in like random roads and like places where there was random holes in the road or crevices, stuff like that. And it was like staring into a solid black mirror. And I believe it was Val was the first one to like touch it, I believe.
I think it was.
Yeah, I
I do
think you were
believe
the
it
first
was.
one to touch it. And I think actually maybe you grabbed one of your blood hunters and you had them investigate it and you wanted to see what happened to them.
I don't remember.
Um, for all intents and purposes, basically, someone stuck their head into the puddle as they sort of like dip their hand in, because I believe someone failed a deck save. It slipped into the pool. And luckily,
Yeah.
someone else, aka Tove, was able to just grab them in that moment. And the rain wasn't dripping down their body, luckily. So, as their hand and arm and face fell into this pool of water, it was like breaking through a veil, and they pushed out and they looked around and they were in the sky. But they were
Yeah.
confused because it wasn't the material plane sky. It was dark and shrouded in gray and death. and they looked down and around, and they saw it was the Shadowfell. Now, the Shadowfell and the Feywild orbit the material plane. So, it was daytime in the material plane, which meant it was currently nighttime in the Shadowfell. They
I
wait
always get I always get confused with it.
they waited until nighttime, and after checking the portal multiple times and this rain that had fallen that seemingly was not disappearing, they pressed through it again, readying flying spells. They jumped through, and the moment Val jumped through, he jumped out of the portal and immediately crashed onto the ground as the plane had shifted to now match. So as they crawled through the water, they came up the water in the Shadowfell, and they were on. Essentially, they entered the Upside Down. Essentially, like, is what happened. Like, literally, legitimately, what happened without actually happening. I made my players go to the Upside Down, and I
Yeah,
absolutely did not mean for that to happen. But one of the spells in Vecna's
sure
book,
you did.
one of the spells in Vecna's book, is a Blood Rain spell, and I combined that with the Void Storms, and I made my own Banishment Storm. I thought that was a very fun storm to play with.
Yeah.
So the party jumped through. They ended up leading as many people through as they could to ready their armies and ready their way through. The party looked to the ship and said, "We'll meet you there, but we're flying in on our ship." During this time, Nathaniel had just finally crafted an additional flying ship. Finally, using what he had with Lenestra as well as with T, they were able to successfully craft a flying ship and basically ride along with the Rimtherian to the Shadowfell. The party and their armies got together and they began to enter the Shadowfell one by one as fast as they could. The the boat shimmered and shifted, and as the boats were flying through voidless space, they ended up in the Shadowfell, and they saw approaching them not just a floating massive tree, but underneath that tree, almost as if like a castle was ripped up from the ground, but then turned upside down, was a floating castle with a tree growing out of the top of it. And they saw this floating amalgamation coming at them, and just beneath it, undeath everywhere. There was undead dragons, there was undead giants, there was every type of material being. There was undead beasts, creatures of all sorts of shapes and sizes, and they were following the castle, circling around it, even like ants. And they would have to get through that to get to the castle.
Yeah.
The party looked upon this with regret and a little bit of anticipation and a willingness to smite make right. And I
Yeah.
believe the first one to release their creature, their sort of like primordial bond, was Toph and Tat. Toph released his Leviathan, which was this massive water spirit that surged up from the ambient water in the air and immediately started making quick work of as many undead as he could. Tat released her phoenix, and it began to fly around and trying to lead away as many of the dragons as she could. You ended up spawning your earth primordial, your earth turtle, as soon as you guys saw the first laser go off.
Yes.
Um, the castle seemed to generate this sort of like natural undeath energy, and as it did, it would pulsate at like a centermost point within the castle, and then a beam of energy would shoot out and just slice through 100, maybe even 1,000 or more soldiers in an instant, gone in a flash. And death, living and unliving, both gone, disintegrated in an instant. And they saw that and they were just like, oh no.
Yeah, that you could say that again. There was more than a, oh no.
But at this moment, as soon as they saw that, they saw flying from like the dust and debris that was just settling, two massive undead dragons wrapped around the ships that were being flew on and immediately started to attacking. Nathaniel's ship was being crashed down because Nathaniel's ship didn't have as many protections. Nathaniel's ship was lucky enough to be able to fly. It didn't have a crazy force field like yours did. So it was taking heavy damage. Your guys' ship was able to hold on as much as it could. Eventually, Nathaniel's ship did start going down, and they had to jump over to your guys' ship to not die from crashing. Um, and then the dragons just started fully in on your guys' ship. They were breathing out undeath dragon roars and dragon breath weapons. It was a pretty fun fight for all I'm said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You guys got
We
your dragon
definitely
fight.
we definitely understood that you hated us.
You guys got your dragon fight though.
We finally did.
Toph went into his full dragon form for the first time, also in that fight. Um,
Which was sick.
yeah, he basically fought. He went full silver great worm, as he jumped off of the ship. And you could see him fly around attacking the two undead dragons. Of course, the undead dragons were resistant to cold damage, but he was still putting up a great fight against them. They were biting and scratching into one another. I got Toph's dragon form all the way down to Toph's dragon form has 500 or something HP. I got him down to 260 with those two
Yeah,
dragons.
yeah. It was super close.
So they were extremely tough, and they got you guys down pretty good. You guys basically decided to continue going. You guys cracked these potions and started healing yourselves. You guys took a short rest as long as you guys could to try to regain as much as you could back. And then you spawned your earth primordial. And not only did you spawn it, you spawned it to where it landed on the castle, sort of like off tilting it and causing it to fall.
Yes, that was the plan.
And as it started knocking it down, the castle started twisting up underneath its stomach, and another ray of disintegration blasted straight through your earth primordial spirit, and you could just see a solid hole in this giant mountain that was this earth turtle. And it looked at you and it was gone. I think I dealt 337 force damage to it.
Oh, it was a hefty amount.
Yeah, I
sure.
dealt 337 force damage to it. And yeah, it was immediately it did the job. It's knocked it off kilter, and it started crashing the castle down to the ground. But he got one final shot off, and it caused the Earth Primordial to basically disintegrate into sort of like rock and dust. But it will slowly regenerate in its plane, so no need to worry. There'll be flowers next year, hopefully.
Yeah, sure.
But after that happens, T gets a message from Mistra saying that this is the final attack. You must be ready, and I hope you've decided on what you're planning on giving up. At this point, no one has truly talked about what they were giving up. Not fully. They weren't fully sure on what to give up. As the ship got closer and closer to the castle that had fallen, they all took a moment and they all semi-discussed a little bit what they're planning on getting rid of. I don't believe you guys officially knew what each person was getting rid of until the moment, if I remember
Yep,
correctly.
we didn't say anything to each other. We kept it pretty close to the chest, all of us.
Yeah. And the other part of the spell finally came in. The knowledge and then the power. They finally were told what the power was. The power needed to enact this spell wasn't just their own innate spell slots or health or exhaustion points. It was the actual divine artifacts that they were wielding needed to power the spell as well. They would also be giving those up willingly as well.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, they all realize that these divine artifacts that we searched the planes, the universe for, would be gone
Yes.
after this fight. They will be used to as like anchors, binding the spell and making it cast. So, the party finally makes it to the castle. They begin to uh, find the tallest tower, as the castle is still upside down when it crash lands onto the earth or the Shadowfell. They begin to run up, and they can tell that the castle was specifically made to look upside down on the outside, but inside it was right side up. So it's kind of trippy. They walked into the castle and they climbed the spiral staircase up this tower that they entered through, and they eventually make it to a throne room, a very similar throne room to a certain something that was just on the other side of a certain something's
By
portable
a
hole.
certain portable hole. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't you dare
super
me.
weird,
That was
super
yeah.
weird.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Just saying, you guys could have gotten access to it much sooner.
Could we have? Could we have?
I mean, you could have ran in there and seen what's up. But they made their way in there, and the throne room has changed. They see 4 to 5 giant stone obsidian obelisks across the throne room, and they can kind of tell that there's something inside of each of them. And as they get a closer look, they see people inside of them. And not only do they see people, but they see 2 to 3 very specific people. They see Sol and Mar in their own, and then they see a certain Lord of Barovia in one. As
Oh yes.
as
Freaking Shroud.
as Strahd's official body was being reconstituted in one of these obelisks, and stepping behind one of them, they hear the faint whispers of, "Welcome to my coronation."
Oh God.
And they see standing there with his arm attached, but not his other eye, just one. They see Vecna, and he's hovering, and these obelisks are like 40 feet tall, and the people that are inside of them are probably like maybe a little bit more than halfway up them, just like solidified in obsidian stone. And he kind of floats around them, touching them ever so gently, and he turns to Verici and says, "I have room for one more. If you're interested, we could just end this now." And,
Oh gosh.
and
Yeah,
they
that's right. He tried to Barichi.
the reason why it came out that Barici was wanted was because Vecna was looking for shadow sorcerers, those that have an innate connection to the Shadowfell, as he could use their own innate connection to the Shadowfell to essentially amplify his machine he created that could rip a tear through the Shadowfell big enough that it would cause a domino cascade effect to all the inner planes, and then that would slowly, like a planet getting bigger and bigger with mass, the gravitational pull would eventually start pulling in a bunch of other smaller planes from the outer plane, and then just begin pulling more and more and more until it's all solidified into one mega plane that he would
Yeah,
rule over.
he was legitimately trying to smash the planes together to rewrite reality to what he saw fit.
Yep. Um, so Vecna looks at Verici and says, "How about you just hop over there and just get in your statue, and we can end this right now. No one in this room would have to die. That's my gift to you."
And we all said, "Get fucked, son."
They all said get fucked, and the initiative was rolled. Battle was had. Toph immediately morphed into dragon form, but before he attacked, Verici looked at him and said, "Wait, we can't kill him." Vecna looked at them all with smiles, and he said, "But why? Why can't you kill me? Go ahead. End me. You can try. I won't make it easy." And Verici's like, "No." And turns to Val, and Val sort of answers the reason why. Do you want to be the one to
Mhm.
answer?
Is the what he said verbatim?
No, you don't have to say it verbatim, but like in
No,
general.
no, no. What Vecna said verbatim.
Oh, Vecna. So Vecna said, "You can try to kill me. I won't make it easy, but."
Oh, and Val, after Verici said that, Val stepped forward, gripping the blood razor in his left hand and the blade of hope in his right, or and triggered the blood vial at the end of the palm of the blood razor that he's been storing using his crimson right, infusing his blood razor with uh, radiant energy,
Mm-hmm.
and pointed the blade of hope at him and said, "Because we're not trying to give you an escape route. We're planning on what I say. I said we're not planning on giving your ass an escape. We're planning on keeping you here for all time."
So those of you that don't know, if you kill a lich, their body eventually reconstitutes where their phylactery is located. Those of you that don't know, the party didn't know because that is a very kept secret and it would have required the knowledge of beyond the gods to find this information out. It would have been very difficult to find this information where Vecna's phylactery currently resides.
Mm-hmm.
They did eventually find out where Vecna's phylactery resides, mind you.
GEVI?
Yes, you did. You may not remember, and I'll be more than happy to tell
Oh,
you. But yeah,
I
but
remember
even though you
now. It
guys,
was crafty as shit.
yeah, but even though you guys know where his phylactery is, there's no way to officially destroy his phylactery because of what it is, unless something else happens. But essentially, the party realizing they can't go for the kill, they can only go for the main, have to fight a god without trying to kill him. Talk about your
Yeah.
catch 22 here.
It was so difficult. Holy crap. Like, we came out the gate swinging. We were going to hit him hard and fast and drop him as much as possible. We knew it wasn't going to be easy.
But they
He,
did not.
we,
Yeah.
we did not let up at all.
They
We,
also
we,
didn't realize
we threw
how many.
caution to the wind.
They also did not realize how many legendary resistance actions and resistant or reactions Vecna gets, which threw them all off because they all started casting very powerful spells and doing all this crazy stuff, and Vecna was like, "No, no,
Oh
no."
yeah, just counterspelling our shit left and right.
So those of
We
you,
counterspelling his shit
yep.
left and right.
So those of you that don't know, Vecna innately has a reaction that's just counterspell, but it's a more potent counterspell that also deals damage to the person he counters. Super fun. Loved it. Vecna also has a bonus action where he can just teleport 70 feet anywhere. And if there's anyone within, I believe, 40 feet of him, they take damage. And if anyone takes damage within that 40 feet, he regains 70 hit points.
Yes, a tremendous pain in the ass for us Marshall classes.
And on top of that, his blood curses, Val's blood curses on Vecna.
On, only worked if I amplified them, which I don't. And for all those who don't know, blood curses amplified deals necrotic damage to yourself
Mm-hmm,
to amplify the curse onto that person,
mm-hmm.
and then they get to roll to see if it even sticks and to how long it lasts on them.
So there were a couple times where Vecna failed the roll, and then on his next turn, he would just use an action to dispel magic on himself. Or remove curse. It was
Yeah,
remove curse.
it was remove curse. Yeah, yeah. This asshole, like our only saving grace that we found out like right before combat, because we did some investigative work. We did, like we finally buckled down. We knew this was it. We all had to play to our individual strengths. There was beautiful role play on the what we've learned and how we've grown to know each other and what we discover about ourselves, and we all came to the consensus to the understanding and flow almost like music how we interacted with each other, our characters that we were inhabiting. And it came down to, due to Toph's ascendance to a great worm, a silver dragon, his power is immense.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew that, and his intelligence and forethought into uh predicting and withstanding and being the shield as well as the force
Mm-hmm.
to keep Vecna's attention on him for a large part. Cat, she knew that she had great magical capability, but she knew that she cared more about her companions than most anything else. So she not only was dealing damage where she could, but she was playing support and buffing and countering and doing everything we can.
Mm-hmm.
We pulled out all the stops.
And let's not forget
Liness,
one thing.
what's that?
During all of this incredible speech that you're giving, T couldn't participate in combat or heal you because he was actively setting the ritual up, which
Yeah,
was rolled for, and it took 12 turns for the ritual to start. So you guys had to survive 12 rounds because it took
yeah,
12 of T's turns.
yeah. And we knew that we had to keep T because T was there, but we had to keep him
Yeah,
protected.
he had to be within
Yeah.
60 feet of Vecna for the ritual to
So
work.
we were picture this. This is how our illustrious DM over here described it to us, and the image, how it was burned into my brain, is so beautiful, and it's something that I'm going to take to my grave. I swear, in my head, it is such a wonderful scene. As we entered the chamber, almost like any other corridor, uh, two double, about 10 foot to 12 foot tall medieval doors, clad
Mm-hmm.
in black steel onto a almost velvety red wood, but it was withered. As we pushed and opened and entered into the blackness, we could not see past the blackness. As we entered, we found ourselves almost as if we were teleported to another realm, to another
Mm-hmm.
place.
Yep.
And in this singular, wide, enormous,
Throne room.
almost almost throne room slash almost underground. Oh, it was a combination. We didn't know if we were underground, above ground, in another universe. It was surreal, but it was so vast and so big of a chamber for just a throne. And in the center, there was a tree, if I believe that what you were saying. And we saw what he was performing, and we figured out what he was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And as we approached, all of us,
Mm-hmm.
slowly approaching, not running, walking, as we prepped and understood from many sessions before, that as we approached in this dimly lit, voidness, almost chamber, cavernous, whatever you want to call it, with a tree, a large, massive tree of immeasurable beauty and size, giving off waves of life, energy, and of all sorts and all types, just the essence of life itself and what binds all together. And at its roots was Vecna.
And
And
let's
as we approached slowly,
mm-hmm.
we all knew what we all planned to do.
And let's not forget, during this fight, two other things happened. You guys then
Hmm.
had to face Vecna's four generals, because Vecna
Hmm.
eventually just like teleported high up into the sky, and as you guys tried to get him, Toph immediately got struck in the face by a falling monk,
Yes,
and then you guys had to face the four again,
yes, his heralds. That's right.
and you guys had to fight them during this, and while you guys were
Oh,
fighting, Vecna was
I
just
do want. I do
flying.
want to
Yeah.
say.
Mm-hmm.
I want to finish my thought
Yeah,
before
go
I
ahead.
lose it.
Go ahead.
Our only saving grace that we figured out, because we crunched as much as what we knew and as much as what we have been privy to and had demonstrated,
Mm-hmm.
We stood very little chance, even with the artifacts that we had, even with the power and experience that we acquired in our skills. We stood very little chance of succeeding in what we needed to do. Bring him down, do not kill him, restrain, keep him busy long enough for T at our backs is performing this intense, powerful ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And our only we figured out a strategy
Yep.
that our saving grace was my blood maledicts and uh Varici's massive high damage outputs and uh him not expecting to be manhandled by a dragon.
Yeah. So there were
Those
things that
were
he did not
yeah,
know as well.
yeah, well yeah, there was things that we had in our favor that we played to because outside of well, outside of what we knew.
Hmm. So yeah, you guys did amazing. But during the fight, oh, I believe we might be losing the worst one because of the storm.
Because
Yep, we're losing him because of the storm.
we is
Come on, worst one. Come on.
players also do that. But here,
There
can you
you
hear
are.
me?
You're back. You're back.
I promise I'd be here.
Yeah. But yeah, there were things that he totally didn't know that you guys had. Like he couldn't be 24/7 watching you because he was doing other things at the same time and you guys were
Well,
doing amazing.
this is a final thing, and then
You're
I'll let you
fine. Go
carry on.
ahead.
I'm just super proud of us for figuring this out. As we were going through, we didn't know. As we were fighting, all of us individually looked at each other because we saw a pattern go on that if I blood maledict him, he had to spend one of his actions
Mhm.
to dispel the or remove curse from himself,
That is true. And I
which freed us up from getting fucking pummeled by
mhm.
his immense power, and then being grappled by Topher, and then having to slip or teleport out of there. That also limited that. So we were cutting off things that he could have done to us by putting pressure onto him. And as we all looked at each other, I remember sitting at the table looking at every one of them, and we all just saw it and we all nodded at each other and knew keep the pattern going.
So
That's it.
yeah, you're good. Yeah, I mean that kept happening, but I will say because Toph kept grappling him, Toph's HP started getting down really low because I was dealing psychic and necrotic damage to him every
Oh,
turn,
we're well aware. We're
and
well aware.
Toph's HP was already pretty low already, and Tat was the healer essentially. Tat was keeping him up, and so was everyone else that was there, but Tat and Lanestra were
Oh
keeping
yeah,
Toph up.
thanks to Locky and all the
Lanestra's
rope.
new pact item or new
Yeah,
vestige, which whenever
yeah,
she heals, she also heals a little bit to herself,
that's
which
right.
was very good for a healing tank.
Yeah, and thanks to Locky and the Pact of the Celestial, I was able to, and with the wings that Lockheed loaned me, I was able to move very swift and very fast to Toph, and I could even lend a helping hand on
You remember
curing
how
wounds.
during that fight you almost lost your wings?
Yes, I do remember that. That was awful.
Oh yeah. So Val flying up to I believe it was Vecna when his generals were out, nearly got his wings severed off by the Leonin.
That son of a bitching
He
cats.
nearly carved them off of his body
Do,
with his own vestige.
do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, do you remember that when they showed up, all of us stopped and like regrouped to each other, and we were all so fed up with them and
Mm-hmm.
so done, and we were like ready to get this done
Mm-hmm.
that we all just called out our victims. I said, I'm taking the cat.
Mm-hmm.
And Toph said he was gonna keep Vecna busy, and Barichi said he was going for Monk Man.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, Tat said that Tat and Lanestra said they were going to double team his ass
Well,
because
there was
one was
also
already gone.
yeah. So the druid was killed. Um,
Yeah.
the druid died. That was the first one you guys killed, and you guys were able to successfully kill him while fighting the undead dragons, which is why the undead
Hmm.
dragon fight took so long. But uh, the cleric, yeah, you guys, they were double teaming. Lanestra and Tat. Um, I think this is when Tat got killed with Finger of Death.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. So during your guys' fight with the four, and just after your wings almost got severed, because you barely made the saving throw, barely. Um,
Oh yeah, Tat didn't almost die because once again I sentineled
no,
her.
Tat died because you guys had to use a wish.
Oh
Tat
yeah, that's
fully died.
right. I
So
blocked that trauma out. Thank you for bringing it back.
you're welcome. So you just barely survived your roll. Verici was getting manhandled by a monk that was
Oh
attempting to stunning strike him, and the only reason it was failing was because of his high constitution save. Because of Verici's high con save. That is the only reason it was
yeah.
failing. But Verici was looking hurt because, and I don't know if you guys know this, the monk had an item, it was his vestige. He would deal additional force damage and he would heal for half of the force damage he dealt. So that was fun. Um,
That was awful. It was 100% awful. I
the
hated
the
every minute.
Leonin was going at you endlessly, carving at your wings and everything. I think the Leonin in after its turn, so that is after action surging twice. So that is 8 attacks in one turn. Or sorry, that's no, I'm sorry, that would be 12 attacks in one turn because at level 20 fighter, they get 4 attacks per turn or four
Yeah.
attacks per action. So that is 12 attacks per action. He dealt, I believe, 230 something damage to you. None of those crit except the very last one. And since his blade is a Vorpal blade, it would have severed your wings. But you had to make a saving throw, and you barely made it on the saving
Thank
throw.
goodness
If you
for
had
that hybrid con,
if you
baby.
had failed the saving throw, your wings would have been severed. You would have taken an additional 20 points of slashing damage, and you would have just fallen
Do you remember
instantly.
why I had advantage on
I believe Blood Razor gave you advantage, or the armor.
it was the armor that gave me advantage on con saves.
Yeah, so that happened. Verici was looking hurt, but he was able to like keep himself steady. You guys turn over to see Tat and Lanestra doing okay, and then all of a sudden, uh, the cleric teleporting in front of Tat, grabbing her wrist and finger of death her
Oh yeah, that's right.
instantly. And
Yeah.
he not only finger of death her, he then channel divinity touch of death and dealt just an instant 45 additional necrotic damage on top of what he rolled because of cleric of death. And Tat immediately died. She hit 0, and as soon as she hit 0, and I said, "Are you at 0?" and she said yes, and I was like, "Okay, you resurrect as a zombie under control of Rasputin now."
Yes, and we had to use our freaking
You had to use
wish.
2 wishes actually.
Yeah, we
Uh,
had to wish
so
for. I
T
forget how we worded it.
So
How did we
T
word the
so
first one?
basically T threw Lanestra the scroll and said, "Bring Tat back and I will do the other one. I need to focus on this." So that was T's turn. Lanestra grabbed the wish scroll, recited it out loud, and said, "I wish for Tat to resurrect." True resurrection. True resurrection breaks zombification, but does not revive. So they had to true resurrect her twice using wish.
Yeah.
So there wasn't any sort of backlash because they were following the words of the wish spell. They just used wish to cast true resurrection, which it's capable of doing. So Lanestra rolled that. Lanestra then took necrotic damage equal to the spell level because she doesn't have access to 9th level spells because she's a paladin, half paladin, half cleric, and she does not have 9th level spell slots.
Yeah,
So
I know.
she immediately took necrotic damage, and she took, I believe it was 45 necrotic damage she took. Um, she's standing up, she's alive. Tat's zombification ends after she walks over to Val and tries to strike at Val twice and misses, sadly.
Very
Um,
sadly.
yeah, and Toph sees this and he's going full rage mode, and then Varici's like, "You can't kill Vecna, but you can kill that guy. Go for it." And Toph immediately goes back down and tries to go after him, leaving Vecna out in the open. And Vecna's just watching this and laughing while this is happening. Um, Immediately, it gets back to T's turn after everything happens. Toph had landed really good hits in on the cleric of death, and he was looking really hurt. And then it gets to T's turn, and T opens his spell book while mid channeling this ritual. Basically, for all intents and purposes, T rolled with a disadvantage on his Arcana check to keep the ritual going. He got, I think, like a 26 still, because T's Arcana is fucking insane.
Yeah, very insane.
So T got a 26 on the disadvantage Arcana check, kept the ritual going, and then he cast his wish spell, his 9th level spell slot. He cast it, and he said, "I wish for Tat Angel to resurrect truly right now." And she resurrected.
Ooh, buddy. Yeah.
She resurrected with 1 hit point uh, instantaneously, because we were essentially using Revivify rules, because it hadn't even been a full minute yet since Tat got zombified or got killed, became a zombie, got killed again. Okay, it hadn't even been a full minute. That was some whiplash for that soul right there.
Yes.
But essentially that happened. Tat regains 1 hit point, and then T, using his new ability that he had gotten from his primordial awakening, he essentially was able to bonus action, and he was able to cast a powerful healing word to Tat, because essentially we were using spell driver rules before spell driver was a thing. It's the critical role feat where you can cast a bonus action spell the same turn you cast a leveled spell, as long as it's 3rd level or under. So he cast a 3rd level healing word to Tat and healed her as much as he could, and then went back to the ritual. It gets to Tat's turn. Tat tries to fully heal herself with a massive potion. She drank one of the big potions, I believe the healing potion of Supreme, and got, like, I think 60 hit points back from the potion. So she was looking eh at this point.
Yeah, very eh.
She was still within power word killable levels of HP at this point, which was
Yeah,
scary.
she was in. Oh fuck, we
So
where we hide her.
she bonus action healed herself, realizing they were in danger. Varici finally, on his turn, as an action, released his Elder Tempest. Finally,
That's right. That's
the
right.
Elder Tempest
Finally.
was then released, and the Elder Tempest fought the monk and the fighter at the same time. And then it gets back to the cleric's turn, and the cleric is facing down the maul of a silver dragon, looks at him and laughs, because the cleric is far away from combat from the rest of you guys. He, like, as soon as he killed Tat, he started running away, because that's what he did. He's a death cleric. He just started running off, and Toph
Of
chased him
course you
down
did.
in the throne room, and he was like 80 or so feet away from you all, and he cast etherealness on himself, and no one could counterspell it because no one was in range, and he just went peace and left. And they're
Who
like,
did?
he would the cleric. You guys never killed the
Oh yeah,
cleric.
that's right.
Um, the cleric ended up leaving, and they're like, he wouldn't leave his master, and that's when Val, sort of like, no, like, fourth wall knowledge mixed with, like, no, Val knows this because of the artifact
Yeah,
that's on him. He's wearing
yeah, and
Vecna's eye, and as long as a
yeah,
piece of Vecna exists, it doesn't matter.
yeah, and with my investigator fee and how I built him is that he deduced and put it all together that must be it.
Hmm.
There's no way.
So, no way for what? I'm sorry.
There's no way that he would just abandon his master unless it was specifically that he this was the last resort.
Yeah, basically, out of character knowledge, his whole point was to make sure there was a piece of Vecna still around, regardless of whatever happens. And he knew he was going to die, but he was a holder of Vecna's eye. And Vecna mentally told him, go. And that's when he cast etherealness on himself and he vanished. He went into the ethereal plane and ran, and
That's
got out of
right.
there. And you guys couldn't chase him because you couldn't leave the castle. And he was also on like a separate plane now. So Toph turned around and held back with Vecna, which Vecna was then looking around and having the time of his life, just jumping around. The Elder Tempest ended up finally, with the help of Verici critted twice, once on the fighter and once on the monk, slaying them once and for all. He was finally able to put them down. The fight was still ongoing. This is round 12, the round where the ritual is enacted. They had used, Vecna had used 3 out of his 5 legendary resistances so far, and they needed him to burn the last 2. They have to before this ritual commences. We can't have him get out of this in any sort of way. So they try to use every possible thing they can. They keep having Toph grapple him and burn him and everything. Vecna then does this like crazy ability where he splits out 3 black tendrils at 3 random people. They have to make saving throws as Toph sprays his dragon breath at him, and basically they take half the damage Vecna took if they failed to save.
Yes.
And there's more crazy combat happening. Finally, T, before he stands in the sigil to enact his part of the spell, he looks at Vecna and he does a divine intervention with Mistra, and essentially he's like, Mistra, I need you to take some of his legendary resistances away. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but please do it. And he was a level 20 wizard, or sorry, no, he was a level 20 cleric, arcane, and Mishra came down and like wrapped Vecna in these like magical chains that teleportation couldn't use, and so he had to make a saving throw, and Vecna failed, and he had to use legendary resistance to bamf out of them. So that was a legendary resistance down, and then this is the 5th and final one. Did not happen for a while. He was holding that in. Vecna was like, "You're either gonna kill me, or I'm gonna, because I'm not using this legendary resistance. I'm holding it." He
Yeah.
knew what was happening,
Yeah.
and I believe Tat. He failed a saving throw on a spell for Tat, which was, I believe, dominate mind or monster, or I think, or creature. I can't remember what the spell's officially called, but he failed the saving throw, even though he had advantage. Tat used her meta magic to make him roll with disadvantage, so it was a straight roll. He failed it, and Tat was dominating his mind, and it was a very good interaction if you remember that one. Tat was arcing between good and evil at this point. It was a battle of wills at this moment between Tat
Yeah.
and Vecna. And you saw your Storm Sorcerer Mage essentially attempt to wield the mind of a god in her head with her Dream Spirit's help. Vecna looked at her and didn't want to deal with the aftermath of this, so instead he legendary resistant one more time, and then he started. That's when Vecna went full balls to the wall. I'm killing all of you now because I'm not
Yeah.
letting you
Yeah.
trap me. And that's when Toph kept grappling him and keeping him still and trying to keep him there. And he kept teleporting. And essentially, it was Toph and Vecna that was all that left. All of you started getting in your specific sigils. And this is what happened. He stood in his sigil, and on his turn, he put down his book, which was his vestige, his spell book, and said, I offer my spell book to this ritual. I hope the goddess Mistra can hear my plea. And as for the cost for the spell, I decree I give up my ability to shift and my ability to cast spells.
Yeah.
Uh,
Pretty heavy.
So then T's part of the ritual ignites and the ritual begins, and then multiple other sigils begin to place around the floor. Lanestra is the next person to get in. And Lanestra says, she breathes in and out, and she says, "I give up my shield and my morning star." And they sort of like hover and float around her. And she says, "I hope Saren Ray hears me now, and I love you, Saren Ray. I love you all. I give up my faith."
Mm.
And then the next person to get in is Tat, and her tarot cards begin to fly all around her, and she says, "I hope the goddess of fate hears our cry, hears our plea, and I hope she binds fate toward us." And she says, "I give up my mental abilities. I give psychic damage in the future. She lost the ability to cast any sort of telepathy spells, sending spells, anything that would imprint a message, an image, or an illusion, or mess with the mind. She lost all capability of doing that. She can't cast any illusion spell or any enchantment spell, and almost no divination spells. And she also can no longer telepathically speak to people, telekinetically move things with her mind, or speak to her dream spirit anymore. They were all gone.
Yes.
And Tat's part of the spell ignites. Next after that is Verici. Verici gets in, and his armor begins to pull off of him and begins to glow. And he says, "Lathander, don't let me down, man." And Verici says,
Oh God.
"I give up all my memories except for the ones about Vecna only. So that way I can stay and be a watchful guard, and I will stay here and watch Vecna forever, never leaving." That was Verici's gift, essentially. The next
Yeah.
person, because Toph was last, Toph had to be last. He was the only one that could actually grapple Vecna and like do damage to him without being outright killed. Um, was Val. Do you remember what Val did?
Uh, yes.
He stands in the
Val.
sigil.
I stood in the sigil,
The sword
and
begins to
as
glow.
I held it up to with my right hand. I brought the where the hilt and the blade, or my reflection, where I could see through the blade and see truth. And I said, and I give up my those I give up my family.
In your pack.
Yeah, and my pact.
He
And I turned and slammed the blade into the ground, embedding it a few inches.
So essentially, what that does to Val is nobody, friend that he deems family, a family tie to Val, I, be it blood or be it a found family connection, they can no longer see, hear, or speak to Val. And if he ever tries to interact with them, he would break his vow. On top of that, because of Loki's and Val's connection throughout the entirety of the campaign, he lost his complete connection to Loki. For the first time ever in a very long time, Val was alone again with just himself.
Yes.
Last up was Toph. After slamming Vecna to the ground and slamming him into the center of where all these rituals were going on, chains began to wrap around Vecna, and Vecna saved on a couple of them, but a couple of the chains grappled him and kept him restrained, and he couldn't teleport out. And he was not yelling or screaming; he was laughing and saying, and basically saying, "You may keep me trapped in chains, but chains rust, they break, and your mortal bonds mean nothing." And then that's when Toph stood in his. He was still in his dragon form, and he offered his storm girdle, which sort of like propelled itself out of his dragon form and began to
Mm-hmm.
float around him. And Toph said, "I give up my ability to rage, my ability to feel the anger of other barbarians." And Toph completely, as a full barbarian, gave up the main aspect of a barbarian, which is raging.
What he legit enjoyed beyond all measure.
And on top of that, for the longest time, his dragon form was tied to his rage. He could only enter his dragon form when he raged. So since he gave up his rage while in his dragon form, Toph was now forever a silver great worm. He was no longer Toph Hadglass, a level 20 barbarian. He was Toph Hadglass, the silver great worm incarnate. There was no longer any giving that up. He fully is cemented with that for all eternity now, until he is slain, or until it is time to pass the power on to another.
Yes.
So that happens, and the final part of the ritual is enacted, and the powers are growing. Chains begin wrapping around Vecna all at once. The spells are ignited, power is had, and then all that's left in front of them as Vecna laughs in front of them, a maniacal laugh as he screams out, "This may be the end of one story, but it is the beginning of new ones to come, because I didn't just wake up the old ones. I messed with a lot." And
Yes, the cryptic shit.
he was then sealed away within his cocoon of chains made of primordial, arcane, and divine magic all together. And in this moment, he looked out. The party looked out and around, and their costs of their spells started to take a hold of them. Each of them, one after another, being stripped from them in an instant. Lanestra, in that moment, picked up the book of good, essentially the opposite of Vecna's vile darkness,
Yes,
and
yeah.
used the book one time ability that was bestowed upon her to mass modify memory her allies.
Oh yeah.
And she talked you all into it, because she asked all of you if you would all willingly fail this save. um she said, "Will you please willingly fail this saving throw that I cast?" And you all willingly saved, and she cast modify memory, and the memory was, as far as you all knew, Linestra died that day, and the Book of Vile Darkness was taken with her life.
Yes.
And Linestra, while the spell was being ingrained in your guys' mind, partially stunned for a minute, she grabbed the Book of Vile Darkness as it burned her hands to hold it, and she dropped the Book of Good, and it vanished to somewhere else, wherever it may go, to find some place of good. And she walked away. The rest of the party came to, and Linestra was nowhere to be found. Her body gone, the book gone, and you all have the memory of her being killed.
It was super, super, super sad. Are we on to Varici yet?
Verici then looked at you all and said, "Who are all of you? Why are you here?" As Verici's memories were all stripped, and all
Yes.
he had was his
Oh,
one goal, which was to keep this person locked in this cage here, because he knew who Vecna was, and he knew he had to guard this cage, but knew nothing
yeah.
else.
Yes. But when the others were like, you already don't recognize, he said that, what did he say? I don't know you three, only pointing at T, Toph, and Tat.
Oh yeah, because he couldn't see Val at all.
Nope.
And then Tat looked over and she couldn't see Val at all. And neither could Toph, and neither could T.
Yep.
And then Tat walked over to T, who was on the ground, sort of like pale and shaky and broken. And in his final form that he shifted to moments before it was stripped from him, he shifted into a halfling, or sorry, a half elf, and that became his permanent form, was a half elf.
Yes.
And Tat tried to whisper in his head, "It's going to be okay," but she realized she only heard her thoughts, no one else's. And T tried to heal her wounds, and nothing happened. Toph walked over, feeling remorse, but he could not feel anger. That emotion was gone. It was cold, and it left sort of like a pit in his heart and stomach because he could no longer feel those emotions anymore. There was nothing left at all. And the Unnaturals that were left the Shadowfell. They gathered as many survivors as they could, and they took to the ship, and they went back. Tat and Toph had a life together. T working with Tat and Toph still, but eventually fell in with a Society of Brilliance and started working with them to uncover ancient and magical relics. Because he was still a very good researcher, he still had all the knowledge of magic, he just had no way to cast it. And he worked and did that. Val lived his life in the shadows, watching his family as the time went by, keeping them safe and prepared. Never,
Yeah,
yeah.
as he watched his twin boys grow
Mm-hmm.
and his fallen celestial, now turned mortal wife,
Mm-hmm.
the celestial of the goddess of the moon, Saloon. Uh, they could never see him, but he was always watching, and he was the mysterious figurehead that was now one of the three leading the Blood Hunter Order in the path they should have been the entire time, protecting all the innocents from things that go bump in the night.
And because of his great sacrifice between him and his brother, Val and Cal, the curse of becoming a blood hunter, the inevitable madness and chaos that it brings, was severed. There was no longer the feeling of darkness and evil and chaos that happened whenever you became a blood hunter. That part of the spell, that part of the magic was gone because of the brother's sacrifice. So, which was good. Blood hunters can now live in peace with everyone else and not really have to worry about, not mating if they didn't want to and stuff like that. It didn't affect them. Blood hunters now was not just bound by blood, but by the ritual itself. So it was one of those. It was like a special moment that your sacrifice meant something. Topher, over the course of while Tat made more taverns named Tat's Tavern and made orphanages and helped raise kids, as well as her and Toph had 6 total children. They
Yes.
Topher, being one of the metallic great worms, kept order among Neverwinter, kept the Everwinter forest winterified, and
Yeah.
he would just be a will of order and just sort of like fly around every which way and cover ground and sort of like make sure everything's good. And if Bahamut needed him to do something, he would do it if need be. Um, Lanestra, since she didn't actually die, started to feel the corruption of the Book of Vile Darkness. And as whispered over and over again in her dreams, the closer you are to the brighter light, the deeper and blacker your shadow becomes. And she was fully blinded by her own light, fully encased with the thought that she needed to make sure Vecna never got free again. And so Vecna's book did the unthinkable to Our Lady of Light, Lanestra. Lanestra became a lich. But that's a story for another time. So, any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you always been this evil?
Yes. Um, you've asked that before. Do you have any other questions?
I'll think of one.
Did you not write them
Uh,
down this time?
I did. I just need to. You answered so many already. So were you prepared at all for what we each individual was going to give up and how the end of our story that it was going to play out and how the events to come before the next campaign was set up? Did you have any clue as to where the stories were going to go individually, or did you have a notion? Did you not know? Did you just roll with it?
So funny thing you should know. Every single person told me what they were gonna get rid of separately.
Really?
Yeah, you had told me just talking to me on Discord what you were planning to get rid of, and uh, sort of like talking about it in generally. But
Yeah.
Tat had texted me, Toph had texted me, um, Verici had texted me, and so did Lanestra. Lanestra had a really long talk about everything, and that's what she wanted to happen. T was my character, so I knew what T was going to get rid of for the very beginning. Um, but yeah, everyone had texted me separately telling me what they were going to get rid of. So I knew before the final battle.
Lame.
Sorry, you wanted the truth.
No, I got you. It was actually very good. It was very poetic, and I loved it. I loved every bit of it. And it would made me sad just rehearing it, the feelings, the emotions that were going. What were you feeling as the DM as we were all feeling this and going through this? Was there a sense of like accomplishment? Was there remorse? Was there what was the DM feeling?
There was no remorse or regret. I did everything I could. I I made it.
I'm not talking about regret as in
Mhm.
how it happened. I mean like general regret of like how the characters how it had to play out and just
Yeah,
like each
so
human
I mean,
human
still,
feeling.
yeah, no, there was no remorse or regret on anything that I did. I feel like the story went perfectly, and you guys obviously you added the details. I gave you an outline of a world with a villain at the end, and you guys filled out the details with your crazy choices. And I just went like, all right, this is what happens because you guys chose choice A. You guys get outcome B essentially. So I was completely fine with everything you guys did, and there wasn't anything truly that ever really threw me for a loop except when you guys kept planar traveling in the ship that one time and you ended up in like
Mhm.
8 different locations in one day or in one session. I was like, guys, I'm gonna break the ship if you keep teleporting. You gotta
Yeah.
stop. But
It was awesome.
yeah, obviously there it was a bittersweet ending because Val it was so sad because Val finally not only because we didn't talk about this because we were just doing the general of our game and essentially letting us to why we love the Unnaturals and the logo that we created and why we love that our name's called the Unnaturals. It's because of our first campaign, but we didn't talk about this, but Val got married in game to his love, who came from Mount Celesta. She was the messenger that heard his message and basically sent it to Mount Celesta for Val, and she was then given by the Moon Goddess the ability to walk among mortals as an Asamar, and married Val.
That's right.
And Val got married, and yeah, just thinking about how she and the sad part is, I knew what was going to happen as the DM.
I did.
Val knew what was going to happen as the player because he was already making these decisions on what he was going to get rid of when he was going to step into the sigil. So subconsciously, Aaron slash Val slash the worst one knew what he was going to get rid of. But
These are lies. I will not stand for this kind of slander.
but Val's wife obviously did not know, and so she looked at him and she said, "Come back to me. Come back for our children, please, because I don't want to do this alone. I beg of you." And Val promised her. And obviously, that promise was broken. And so she had to raise two twin boys by herself, Lucian and Jameson, is their
And
names.
you're a monster. And you're a monster.
One is more like their father, one is more like their mother. So it's just how it happened. But yeah, it was a beautiful sort of situation because the party themselves, they really they outdid themselves with the final fight. Like it holding off to the last second to get rid of his air primordial, like to summon him, and that fight was legit clutch.
Oh my God,
Like
yes.
if he had not done that in that moment, you guys probably would have all died because he was facing the monk and the fighter at the same time because Toph went full rage mode against the cleric because of what he just did to Tat, his wife. And it
Yes.
was, I mean, it was playing out good. Like no one could console Toph. It was like, no, my wife's dead. I don't care what anyone says. I'm going
Yep.
after this man, and no one could stop him. He was a raging dragon, and so
Exactly.
it was beautiful. It was beautifully sad. It was a happy end to a dark story. I will say, on an even better note, all the people that were trapped inside of the stones were released, Strahd included, who actually wasn't a vampire anymore because Strahd true resurrected him, or because Vecna true resurrected him because he needed shadow sorcerers, and in our realm, Strahd was a shadow sorcerer.
That's right. Yeah, he
So
was.
so
And a
Strahd
pain in the
is
butt.
so Strahd is actually still walking around in our current campaign. He's just not a
Oh,
vampire
God.
at this time. And he also doesn't have his kingdom anymore.
Good.
So he's just kind of like a person. He's a guy. So no one
So what I'm curious as to what all our subscribers and viewers all think. I think that, you know, if you guys have any comments or anything like that, uh, what you guys have any questions on any details that we didn't go over or you didn't understand something, feel free to hit us up in the comments and we will respond. Promise you we will respond. And it was a wonderful story. It was a wonderful time. I enjoyed it so much. I got to meet a fantastic group of people and the better one right here. And it was so much fun. And we all grew so close together that we set up for a second campaign in the world
and we'll
that
talk
we
about that
just,
one once we finish it. But I think for now, we hope you guys enjoyed our first campaign. And obviously we're gonna keep doing tavern talks, and maybe our next tavern talk will just be, I was thinking about maybe doing our love for Dragon Age next time.
oh, yes, 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 yes,
Okay, and
yes.
the worst one will be mainly talking about that one.
Oh my gosh, yes, yes.
But unless you have any other questions that you really want answered, like that I can tell you because the campaign's over. Unless I'll be Matt Mercer about it, and I'll be like, I may not go into detail on that because that may come up later.
I,
But unless you have any other
there
questions,
I do not at this
are
point in
you
time.
sure this is your
I
one
think
free moment?
I know, but I know you're gonna tell me that you can't answer at this time
I don't
because
know. You
it's
gotta
so.
ask.
Has our new group in the next campaign, have we run into this mortal Stroud?
Yes,
Damn it.
yes, you guys did.
Okay. I don't want to know anymore because it's just gonna make me upset.
It was a long time ago. Long time
Yeah.
ago. Before
Uh-huh.
Waterdeep.
Oh, ooh. We'll get into that later.
Yeah. But yeah,
We'd like to thank all you guys
mhm.
for listening to us, listen to us ramble about our nerdy D&D game, and we got more to come. We got campaign 2 that will sometime soon wrap up, and we're going to talk about it, and maybe talk about Dragon Age and other things, maybe talk about one shots. And
Yeah.
we've been lucky to be invited and to be sponsored to host D&D games at our at a local store in here in Indiana at Mocha Moose. And it's a coffee shop, a wonderful like mom and pop coffee shop. And we've been lucky enough to be invited to host D&D games and sell merch and stuff like that. Maybe we'll talk some more stories about that, about setting up there and what we plan on running and so on and so forth. But until next time, everyone, have an unnatural evening. And we love and thank you guys so much.
Absolutely, and thank you all for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And please continue to follow us for more. And as the worst one has stated, will state, has already stated, having a
Have an unnatural evening. You messed me up. How dare you jump into my thing?
you're
I
the
thought you
worst
were
one.
gonna say it.
You're
I
the
am the
worst
worst
one.
one. I am the worst one. I'll mess it up.
See you
Have
all
an
next time.
yeah, have an unnatural evening,
No,
guys.
it's the moment's
Later.
over.
Yeah.